Okay, the epoxy on the bottom side of this set up pretty nicely, and I've still got probably another hour of daylight, so I'm gonna put on the first layers of glass to the top side. So I've got my cloth and I've got my mat all cut out for what I want to lay in here for the very first layer. And I've got my resin, hardener, got a little cup, chipper brush, stir, and look at this. Even this time, I remembered gloves. Nothing magic here. The epoxy mix is the same as when we were just wetting out the plywood, 3-to-1. I guarantee you, these gloves aren't going to do me any good. They're going to break and they're going to get covered in sticky stuff, and I'm going to end up throwing them off, but it never hurts to try. Okay. Uno. Oh, it was almost not an uno. Dos. Tres. Bilingual. And then just uno. I know you're proud of me. I knew it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of epoxy on, just so that I have a little bit of tackiness, and when I lay down the mat, it kind of sticks in place a little bit. But then I'm going to wet it out from the top. It tells me I'm going to want twice as much. I'm just going to do it. Quattro. Cinco. This might be very wasteful. Seis. Dos. I know you're impressed. I know it. You're probably digging the hair, aren't you? I know it. Put a little bit in here just so that my mat doesn't slip around. Okay, first piece of mat. I cut undersized. Why? I want a bit of a gap around the edge so that when I put subsequent layers on, I can actually allow it to build up into the edge. And that way, hopefully by doing this on this one layer anyway, I'll minimize the bump, that you'll see evident in the fiberglass from the multiple layers. When you're wetting out fiberglass, you obviously don't want to put on too much, but let's focus on the first part. First part is, it's too dry and not successfully wet out if fiberglass still appears white. When it has a nice translucence across the board, and you know that it's all wet out equally. So first thing I'm going to do, try to get this wet out. And then I'll worry about dealing with the excess resin that I'm putting in here, because trust me, I know there's probably too much resin here. Now, there's air bubbles under here. I'm not going to quite work those out just yet. Lay in this piece of cloth, which was cut such a size to go right up to the edge. And by the way, this first layer of mat and cloth is designed to bring the load up the edges one way, with the next pieces. When I cut out the next pieces of mat and cloth, there'll be a slightly different shape, so that in this case, the bottom piece would then wrap up the edges instead of the top piece wrapping down the edges. And that way they kind of interlock together ultimately. That's the plan anyway. So I'll paint it in here. It tells me I'm actually going to need a bit more resin than what I prepared. Let's see the areas that are dry are slowly soaking up the resin. It becomes more translucent here over time. So that's good. Let's sit a moment. Get our handy dandy roller here. Get her underneath here. I'm laying this glass down in a hole. I'm not really going to be able to necessarily squeeze out any excess resin. So I wouldn't necessarily call this excellent technique. What it is, we quite certainly need to mix up a bit more resin. So I will do that in a moment. Okay, next. A little bit of resin on here, make this nice and sticky. I'm doing the walls here because the next pieces drape over the top and down the little walls. I want them to be nice and sticky. Pressing this down into that resin we just painted on, trying to get it to stick a bit. Wet it out. And I think I have to make some more resin. This mat is apparently approved for epoxy use. But the thing about mat, it usually has a binder in it that's made to dissolve when you're using a polyester resin, and it doesn't apparently do that with an epoxy resin. But this particular mat says it's approved for both, so I don't know how that works out, but that's what we got. Glad I'm wearing gloves. All resined up. Okay. I'm going to try to start bending these down the sides. I'm pretty sure that's going to be a chore until they're wet out and a little bit more flexible. Or it could be a total disaster for all I know. Whoa! And there's Pirate. Hey, buddy. Once it gets saturated, it becomes a little more pliable. I'm sure Andy at Boatworks today would lose his shit if he saw the things I'm doing. But he's not here right now, so I'm doing whatever the hell I want. What a joy it is to work with this slower setting resin though. Fast set that I had from West Systems, good stuff. But man, stressful. It would just start heating up, hardening up, and you were done. This got plenty of working time. I like it. I gotta wet that out more, but first, let's try to get it formed here a bit. Hi, Pie Pie. What are you doing, buddy boy? Oh, Kurt. You're good now. You're good now. First fiberglassing project in a long while, and I decided to go for multiple compound edges. Genius. It bubbles up when it doesn't quite fit right. Okay, relief cutting here somewhere. What song do you have stuck in your head right now? I have the greatest hits from Ray's Infant Swing. Okay, here's the current state of our platform. I've got a layer of mat and a layer of cloth on the interior, and just a layer of mat around the exterior. And I've ground down all the excess off the edges. And you can see I don't do perfect work here. Had a couple areas that didn't really laminate properly. They had air under them, so I began grinding them down. Before I put another layer on this top surface, I gotta sand this whole thing down with about 80 grit, right, to give it a nice tooth, but also knock down any of this loose stuff or little bumps and things that I have here from doing a very messy job. What we're going to work on today is the bottom, which is where I really hope to gain the most strength for this platform, tying everything together here with fiberglass. So what I'm going to do is cut out my pieces of mat, and I'm going to cover this surface. I'm going to cover this surface, right? I'm also going to cover the backside of the face as well as the face. And then I have those strips there on the end that are going to wrap around this edge here and tie this to this all in one layer. I'm not doing anything to actually wrap around edges like this, not with the mat. I'm going to only do that with the cloth because it conforms well to smaller profile edges like this, and the cloth will then tie the top and the bottom surfaces together. So that's how we're going to proceed. I did 9 and 3. Just like yesterday, I'll give it a little bit of glue. Stick down nice while I position it. Then I can wet out the pieces. Hopefully, it won't move anywhere. Piece number 1. I can also do this. Did something stupid last night. I took my roller and I didn't clean it, and I left it sitting on the driveway. So in order to get my roller for today's use, I had to take a hammer and unstick it from the driveway. And it still rolls. A lot of the grooves are full of hardened epoxy. Okay, here's our platform. Everything's cured since yesterday, and I took a wood rasp and I filed off all the raw edges. So the only thing that's left uncovered on this entire platform are the very edges where I didn't want to attempt really to wrap with mat. So this is ready. Everything is sanded. Everything is wiped down with acetone. And my tasks for today are first to use these strips and build up these edges here. Just put some additional fiberglass mat on there. I will immediately move on to applying this sheet of cloth, which I've designed and cut out to basically wrap all the way around this thing and put overlapping edges on all sides. But anyway, that makes a small batch for this first step. There's 3, and there's 1. That was a pain in the ass today. Once I get it sort of positioned, I can wet it out. Once it wets out, the stick can stay in place. That's going to be my nemesis today. I'm even going to eliminate that problem. Bye. Resin gets sucked into this piece. Sticks up a little bit past the router edge here. That's okay. That'll either get cut off or lay the cloth on top, it'll actually get rolled on. Jury's still out of it. Not. Oh, what will the jury say? I guess the jury said go for it. Got two minor patches here from where it didn't adhere the first time, so these little patches in. Minor little thing, really just to bring it up to proper height. Once that's properly saturated, it's going to stick. The next batch of resin. Okay, as I always do, I'm going to put a little bit on here just to serve as glue so that my piece of fiberglass cloth doesn't slide around. And I actually still have to cut the hole out. Oh, I just realized I forgot that. What in the hell was that? Wondering the same thing. Stick it here. I made rough marks on here. Find out. Go there. Approximately there. That's about right. Now, I didn't cut this out yet. And I should have. I always cut on diagonals towards the corners. And that way the pieces lay down. And they might slightly overlap, but hold out. Lay down when I want it to. When I did that, yeah, I'm gonna mark it. Like that Sharpie thing. Leave about a ½ inch. Fold it onto the floor. The rest is getting cut out. Okay, back to this. Wet this out. It should be a little bit easier to wet out than the mat was. Eat your heart out, Andy from Boatworks today. You're probably looking at this going, what the hell is that what we're doing? Trust me, I'm wondering the same thing. Where did this guy learn these techniques? Well, truth be told, this guy hasn't learned any techniques. He's just doing whatever he's doing. Okay, come here, rolling. What's going on here? Dry spot. Dry spot. Bubbles. Little bubbles. All right. Moving on. I just started a whole new YouTube channel called Shoddy Work by Duke. I don't know. It may not actually turn out to be so shoddy after all, but we will see. I don't want too much excess resin. Just enough resin here to wet out the cloth, stick it down properly. Good. Yep. Time for everything to get a little bit weird now. Heard that when you're doing a vertical surface, apply your resin top down. I'm going to assume that's because of gravity, but I'm not going to guarantee that's why. A little pull here or something. And what's going on with that? Also don't much care. I'm going to learn to leave things alone. Go back and fix it tomorrow. Those little areas that popped up. Fuss over them and they just get worse. That doesn't do anybody any damn good. Alright. Not it. Moving on. He prepared this in advance. Wrap. Do all kinds of fun wraps. Top down, genius. Top down. Even though this is actually the bottom. Well, it's the top. As I wet it out, it sticks better. It pulls tighter around this tight edge. It starts to look like I know what I'm doing. Don't be fooled. I don't. It's just sometimes things work out. And I have no illusions that I'm not going to screw this up. I'm good at screwing things up. Insufficient resin alert. I need more resin. Something slid over a little bit. There we go. Much better. Resin on festival. Just doing a test fit here before I finish this, and it needs a little bit of relief work where I cut out the old platform just so this can sit down properly. Besides that, everything fits nice. And the good news is the composting head does fit down into its little pocket very nicely. All right, since I have the unfinished platform down with me today, do some small relief cuts or sanding here just to make sure that this thing actually sits down properly. Much better. Sweet. All right, now I need to grind off all the excess resin and such on here and get it ready for some nice finishing work. It's a very tight fit. I like it. Might as well do some grinding on this and then I'll finish it off with a sander. And that's that. Okay, here's the platform all grinded down. You could see there's areas on here, like over here, there was a bubble where the mat delaminated before the resin could cure. So as I ground all this down, a little bubble popped off. I don't care about that. I've got areas here, look up here, right? That did not laminate very well. Again, I was trying to make these crazy hard curves and, I didn't do the best job with that. I'm also not going to worry about that. I'm not going to put more mat in there. I'm actually just going to fill all of these imperfections with some fairing compound. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I don't really care about the small amount of strength loss from not having fiberglass mat wrap every surface. This thing is overbuilt. It'll be fine without that little bit of extra strength from areas that I popped off. On the back side, more than anything, I'm just going to seal the entire bottom with straight epoxy and call it done. It's fine. The top side, I'll do tomorrow once the bottom dries. I'll mix up some fairing compound and I'll start to spread that across the entire surface, at least the visible surface, and fill any little imperfections like this and make it nice and smooth and make it look very nice. And we will call that done. It's up to one small batch. And one. Mix. Seal this up. I also noticed that I'm using an obnoxiously small brush. I ran out of my 2-inch chipper brushes that I like to use, and I found this. I'm using it. Go wild, go crazy when you do it on your own. I gotta tell you, as amateur as my work is, and as many mistakes as I've made, I'm still pretty happy with the way this is turning out so far. It's very, very strong. I have no concerns that the composting head is going to fall into the build, break this thing. Some roots coming down this side, so smooth them out. End up sanding this whole face again, and blah, blah, blah. All right, let's call that done. Okay, for today's little project, I'm going to spread some fairing compound on the exposed surfaces of this platform. So definitely this. I probably don't need to do this because the head's going to sit in here, but I'll probably put a layer in there. But definitely this layer and the front, the face of this thing. just to start getting it smooth and get it ready for paint. I'll be using my epoxy resin from US Composites, and I'll be mixing in some fairing compound. And it's got the color that makes me think it might be phenolic microballoons. That's the kind of brownish looking stuff mixed with something else. I don't know. A little weird that I don't know what I'm using. But anyway, that's what I'm gonna use. Gloves. Okay, mix up one small batch. So 3 to 1. There's 3. And 1 of the epoxy hardener. Mix this up nice. Okay. Ooh, it's fluffy. I'm thinking it probably makes more sense to pour the epoxy into the dust than the other way around, because this is a bit challenging to work dust down into the epoxy, but it's fine. It worked. I'm working this up into a consistency, something like pancake batter. So I think the amount that I put in here is probably about appropriate. It was guesswork. I kind of went for what looked like anyway a 2 to 1, 2 parts fairing compound dust, 1 part epoxy. That looks pretty good. All right, let's apply this stuff. Start with trying to use this putty knife. We'll see how that goes. Now you use this stuff because the whole idea is it provides a kind of a lightweight, thickened epoxy layer that can then spread around, and it'll get into a little weave of the fiberglass cloth, any little imperfections and divots that you have in the surface, and then it's fairly easy to sand once it cures. And again, this is a support for a composting head. Perfection should not be really what I'm aiming for here. Get this gooped on, spread it around, thin it out. End up wiping the excess off. I don't even know why I'm spreading it here. I don't really care about these surfaces, but get a little bit down. Still make the bottom a little smoother, even though nobody's going to see it. I don't care. These are the surfaces I actually care about up here. Just get kind of spread out and then work it. I'm kind of feeling like maybe I could have gone a little thicker with this stuff, but hey man. Epoxy fairing compound first timer here, so that's what you get. I think that one of the tricks anyway to using this stuff is you don't want to be too stingy, right? Because it sands away pretty easy. You also don't want to put it on too thick because you don't need the excess weight, and you also don't need the extra work of having to sand all the extra off. So find that perfect balance. I really don't think I need much on this very top. That sanded fairly smooth. I suspect the don't overwork it rule applies here too. You just end up causing more problems, I think. Or at least I do. And I'm sloppy. You all know that by now. Just trying to spread it around so that any obvious voids that I have, because there's some little weird shapes here. So I want to make sure I get some of that in there so that when I go and sand this and achieve my imperfect results, they're closer to perfect than they are to imperfect. I might even go around the edge and kind of work it with my finger, kind of like a small little fillet kind of effect. And actually not bad. That's one of the nice things about remembering to wear my gloves. Finger makes an excellent spreading tool. There's a right way to do things, there's a wrong way to do things, there's my way of doing things. And my way of doing things looks an awful lot like the wrong way of doing things. A couple little spots here that are sort of low. I'm just adding extra filler here, and hopefully I can sand those to shape. Just working a little bit around the edges now. Alright, enough of this screwing around. Okay, I grinded and sanded down all of the filler, and it's pretty damn smooth. There's a couple areas, like you can see here, it's shiny, right? Shiny because it's a little low. And then there's a couple areas where there's some pinholes and things. So I'm going to mix up one more batch of straight epoxy just so I can fill those little imperfections in, get one last shot at it, and then sand it down and call this thing done and ready for paint, but also so I could seal one of our stickers inside. Cool. This is a half batch, mini batch. It's 1.5 pumps of epoxy resin and a half pump of hardener, which still gives us our 3-to-1. And hopefully I have enough resin. I don't want to do much with it. I'm just going after the sticker and any little areas where I found that it was slightly low so that I could fill it and then sand it down level. And any little, little pinholes and things that I found that are exposed in the visible surface. I'm not worrying about everything in here. This, don't care about. It's flat enough. Let's first get some of those low areas. And it's obviously going to be a high area when this cures, but then I can sand that down and hopefully not create more trouble. It will be less noticeably amateur. Pinhole in this inside wall here. Might as well seal that so water can't get in when people are taking showers. Okay, important stuff. Sealing over the sticker. Super important, right? Might as well put a thin layer on here, give myself the last chance to sand it down smooth. Fairing compound really did help though with a lot of the low areas and little holes and defects where my fiberglassing wasn't particularly professional. Any edge is going to be sitting in water for any length of time. It would be this edge because it kind of sits right where the shower basin is in the floor. And you just don't want that sucking any water up into the wood if there's any little holes, which I don't believe there are, but you know what? Doesn't hurt to be sure. Double checking, make sure we fill everything that actually needs to be filled. So now, just kind of let this sit, final cure overnight, and I can sand it, and I can paint all of the visible edges. You think I need a haircut? Good enough. I lied.
Okay, so today I am going to paint the composting head base, so I get to do the paint. We had some leftover Genius Bucket EMC paint that we actually used for the transom. So this is the top coat in white, and this is the activator. It's 2-to-1, so 2 parts paint, 1 part activator. I think I'm gonna stir it up just a little bit because it's got like a film over it. Okay, so using our clever mixing techniques, I'm going to use the spoon method and do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then 3 of this. 1, 2. You're right. We paint. Okay. Let's bring you back. Raya.
Maybe we'll do a second coat later, so don't worry about going crazy with making it perfect, you know? Oh, poor little baby. Baby doesn't like projects. Very nice, puppy.
Yuri. So, when we painted outside, we got so many bugs and pollen and crap that we are inside with the vented doors. So, I probably should wear this because we're inside and it's dangerous. Okay, so we're gonna do 8 and 4.
8 and 4 teaspoons. Very nice. Mix it up good, lady.
Yeah. Probably.
So you're gonna put coat 2 on this toady willow platform, and I would like to request that you put a coat on the inside portion as well.
Really?
thing we put down a drop cloth.
Lots of shadows in here, so I'm having a hard time seeing
Yeah.
where the paint is going out more.
I would recommend that you just do a good job.
Okay.
You don't have to worry about it being perfect in there, and nobody's ever gonna see it. I just wanted a layer on there just for, I don't know why.
You're crazy.
Because I'm crazy.
Alright, that's it.
Alright, gonna call it done? Nice job, Bubs. Nice job. Okay, let's see. Foot's in the way. It's good. Seems pretty strong. Cool. That fits good.